So we are here with Mr. Doug Bewick, master and also member of the Freemasonry. So I'm just wondering, since we already did talk about some of the Freemasonry path, what you can tell us about yourself? Why did you join to Freemasonry, and what do you like most about it?
Well, Freemasonry is a family tradition for me. I'm the 5th generation Freemason. My son, through my wife's side, he's 16th generation. So it's a family thing for us. What I feel is the most important aspect of Freemasonry to me is the teaching of young men or young women. I've got to kind of be gender, neutral here.
Of course.
But what it does is it teaches the youth of today a good set of morals which to live by. So what we always go by is one of the passages from Ecclesiastes which says, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth." Youth being the whole key point. Yes, we admit men in their 50s and their 60s, but by then they've already learned all the bad habits. We want to bring them in as young as possible and teach them a good set of morals to live by. We teach them to live by the law of the land, the law of the country, the law of the city, the law of humanity and nature. We teach them all these things. So it's better if we get them young. And this is the glory of the whole thing. If it's used properly, it will create a far better society because we're taking the youth of today and making them better people.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think that's what most people do miss today. Can you tell us, so many people talk about different kind of groups, like Scottish Rite, Knights Templars, there's many, different kind of groups. What you can tell us a little bit about, like some that you know, or the one that you belong to, or, if you can share a little bit about it.
I honestly don't think there's many groups that I haven't joined in at one point in my career. I'm a Knights Templar, but I'm a Knights Templar in 2 factions, one through the Masonic side and one actual the Masonic, not the Masonic Templars, but the actual Knights Templars who actually came from the Crusades. To me, the Knights Templar has a slight problem because it says that it is a Christian organisation. And to me, Freemasonry says right at the very beginning, you can be a Jew, you can be a Muslim, you can be Wiccan, you can be Buddhist, so any of the side branches that we have, likes of the Knights Templar, cannot truly be Masonic. Going back to my other side of Templarism, away from Freemasonry, the true Templarism actually talks about the fact that the teachings are Abrahamic. They include Muslims, Jews, and Christians. So they're not specific. The original Templars met in Jerusalem during the Crusades, and they learned the Jewish faith, they learned the Islamic faith, and they realised that the Christians are the same as the Jews and the Muslims. And that was what they tried to project. That's what they tried to sell to the Church of Rome. The Roman Church didn't like it and put them down for it. So the Templars in the Masonic order, to me, don't get it. And I've had issues with that in the past. Scottish Rite, I've been a member of the Scottish Rite. Scottish Rite is actually a very, very young organisation. It started in the late 19th century, about 1860s, 1870s. And although the name says Scottish Rite, it really has nothing to do with Scotland.
Okay.
It originated in France,
yes,
but was promoted by Scottish exiles from the Jacobite rising in the mid-1700s, 1746. And all the ones who survived the rising fled to either America or to France. So the French Masons that were there learned the French system, took it to America, and it became known as the Scottish Rite. So again, it's a very young system. There is other systems in here in Canada. They're called the York Rite. The York Rite is a very, very old system,
Yes.
and it comes back from the days of the actual stonemasons. The stonemasons used to operate 7 degrees. Our regular lodges here in Alberta, in fact throughout the world, operate 3 of those degrees, but the other 4 are covered by what we now know as the York Rite. So it's part of the original system that went way back into the days of the old European trade guilds, where what they done was, when the young apprentice started, they started teaching him moral lessons related to the tools that he was using. So we teach our apprentices all about the different tools and moral aspects of their life that they should reflect on and think about when they pick up each of these tools. So the York Rite's that sort of, it covers the stuff that the regular lodge doesn't cover. Those 2 alone are all you ever need. But there's more and more systems involved with it. There's Triptych Rite, there's Allied Masonic degrees, there is the York Rite College, there is so many more. But the only 2 that are of any importance in my mind are the regular Blue Lodge and the Royal Arch.
Of course, yeah, we all heard about the Blue Lodge and the Royal Arch. So when we talk about Canada, United States, France, Italy, Germany, it doesn't matter where, Greece, what does a Masonic temple means for a Mason? Because I know each brother can enter and knock at the door at every Mason temple and ask for a shelter, ask for a help, or just go for a visit if they want to visit that temple. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is the meaning of Masonic temple for a brother Mason?
It's, as you said, it's some place we can go if we're in distress. If we end up in a city and we've lost our bank cards, we can go to our local Masonic lodge, we can get contacts, we can phone guys up, and they would happily put us up, feed us, give us a room for the night.
Oh, that's
or a week.
beautiful. So it's a shelter.
Yeah, it's, when I moved to Edmonton, the first place I looked up was the local Central Masonic Temple. And it gave me a network because I knew I could connect to everybody here. They could show me the ropes that was Edmonton, this is the hockey, this is the football and all the rest of the stuff, even though I'm not a big sports guy. I love my soccer, but I've never ever been able to get into the other sports. But the important thing was that this place was here for me. So I knew the first place I wanted to go to was the Masonic Temple, introduce myself and start networking.
That's beautiful. So everybody is always connected. So this is basically like a second home to every brother Mason. It doesn't matter where they are or where they go to. It's like a shelter or a place where they can find themselves and see basically their brothers or find about other brothers that live there. So it's a connection. That's beautiful. I have one question. A lot of people always have questions about the apron. I know there's a different aprons for a different Masons, but I'm just wondering if you can just tell us what does an apron present for a brother Mason?
Can I just...
Of course.
Give me 2 seconds. Yeah. What I brought along this evening is actually my Scottish apron.
Oh, beautiful.
Simply because I find the aprons here are very drab.
Oh, look at that. It's beautiful.
This is a Scottish apron.
Oh, it's very beautiful.
Yep.
And it's all handmade.
Yep.
Beautiful.
And all the embroidery is gold.
And what does it present, if you can tell us a little bit about it?
Well, first of all, we have the thistle, which represents to me it's Scottish. We have our symbol, our square and compasses, with the G in the middle, which is important to every Freemason. Each of these bands, which hang on little ribbons at the side here, there is 7 of them. They represent the 7 different degrees that you can receive in regular Freemasonry.
Of course.
They also, there's a whole bunch of other things that they represent.
Of course.
There's 7 styles of architecture in the ancient Roman kingdoms. There is 7 liberal arts and sciences. So the 7 remind us quite a lot. The lambskin in the middle is purity, and it teaches us to be kind of pure of heart and pure of soul. A little bit with the apron itself. It comes from a working man's apron. So when an apprentice would be taken in, the flap would be up. He'd wear that up over his chest, and then this over his loins, to save him from getting kind of hurt or anything like that. But once you become a master in your trade, you start to get a little bit lax, so you drop the flap.
Ah, there we go. Something new.
Absolutely.
Something new. But this one is very beautiful because it's very unique, and I know every Mason gets one. It depends from which, of course, lodge they come. But this one is very unique because it comes originally from Scotland, and of course it's made originally for you, but it's all made by gold, and it's very, very beautiful. Like I really enjoyed that you were sharing it with us.
This is my old apron. It has rosettes on it. This means that this is a Master Mason's apron.
Yeah.
If I had an upside down T, which represents a level that you would use for leveling ground and things, that would be a past Master's apron.
Yes.
So I decided I'd bring my Master Mason's apron.
Thank you. Oh, that's
rather than
so
my past Master's apron, simply because it means more to me.
Of course, and this is all about today about you and your feelings, and we want to show to people what does it mean. But this apron is very beautiful, it's very unique, and it's handmade, and you can feel the energy from it. It's very, very pretty. And I can feel actually in your eyes, I can see it, that you feel very happy about it.
Oh, absolutely. To me, this means more than anything I've received here in Canada. But it's simply because when I was initiated 35 years ago, and it meant a lot to me then, and it means more to me, that initiation, that initial entry into Freemasonry, more to me than anything else that I've ever achieved in Freemasonry. And as I said, I've been a member of all different groups and societies. I've taken the chair in them, but my first initiation in Scotland was more important to me than anything else. So.
I'm very grateful that you actually shared this apron with us, and I can see and I can feel the energy from this apron. I wanted to ask you one question. Since a lot of times Hollywood and producers make the money on a Freemasonry, because I'll be honest with you, they make up the fake stories, the lies, and they fabricate, because this is how the money in the world works today. What's actually very sad. I'm wondering if there is a young producer out there who can give you a true story and who can do a research and show more about the brotherhood and the truth about the brotherhood. How would you feel about that? What do you think about that?
Well, to show the truth of the craft, I think, is something that really needs to be done, because there are so many different stories about how Freemasonry began. And the origins of Freemasonry began in Rome, when the worst thing for a Roman citizen to have happen in his life is to die without enough money to give him a proper funeral. Freemasonry started as a funerary collection club, where you could put money into the club every month, so when you died, you were ensured of a really good send-off. And a lot of the different trades had these funerary saving clubs. When the Romans started moving all throughout Europe, they only trusted the artisans, the stonemasons, the carpenters, the cartwrights, the armourers from Rome. So they brought these guys across to the likes of France, to Germany, to Britain, to actually build their houses for them. They didn't trust anyone else. But because a lot of these guys couldn't read or write, the only way to recognise them was by secret words or handshakes. So Freemasonry began as a funerary club, then started putting moral lessons and philosophical points to their teachings. So from those early days, it becomes a really, really important teaching lesson for young men to what it is now. So it'd be really good if you could have some producer or some filmmaker that can actually portray it properly. And not the nonsense that we get nowadays. Oh, it stemmed from from Knights Templars, or it stemmed from, some rich Bavarian, bored nobles. It started off as a workman's group
are wonderful because we are missing what's actually the root of the Freemasonry. We are missing the originality. We are getting different stories that are actually fabricated. And like I said, just like we made many stories about Count Dracula, at the end we know he lived, he was a normal guy, but Hollywood made so many stories and money about it. Freemasonry is much, much more. There's so many free thinkers, so many writers, and so many scholars. Can you tell us, for example, some of them that you like, or some of them that you think that are very important for the Freemasonry?
Well, as I said before, I mean, one of the greatest influences in my life was Robert Burns, the great Scottish poet. He wrote so many things that we can relate to nowadays, and when we look at it, we think, you know, why don't we live like that? Yes. He was a very realistic man. He looked towards social injustice, and he fought for it, you know, trying to kind of get equality amongst, and all these aspects are true Masonic beliefs and something that we all aspire to attain in our lives, something that's missing. But Burns put it into words. A man's a man for all that. You know, he spoke about a lot of things that we should be looking to achieve in our life. You know, and he was one of the greatest influences in my life growing up. There's other ones, you know. There's Walter Scott. Walter Scott was a great writer, a great Scottish writer. But you know, his time of writing was the early 1800s. So a lot of people don't get that style of writing anymore. So his work is lost. Rudyard Kipling as well. The early 1900s up to the 1940s. His work was really good. Mark Twain as well. But again, they don't stand time the same as what Burns does. Burns, because he put it in poems, yes, it means it stays a little bit longer.
So now our audience can see for some of those books and basically get advice from them and search.
Absolutely.
And there is one slogan that actually people always talk about it, and it's heard a lot through the media. It's always said, basically, Freemasonry is here to make young men better. What you can tell us about that, since you have so much history and knowledge about Freemasonry?
Well, if they stick to that wording, it works fine. Freemasonry takes good men and makes them better, but it only works when you talk about the youth. You can, as I said before, young men are like putty. You can mould them, you can shape them by teaching them things. When we bring in guys in their late 50s and their 60s, and they're only interested in the social side of it, because maybe they're widowers, maybe they're divorcees, and they just need that social aspect. When they come out, there's no point even trying to teach them moral lessons, because they're only there for the social side. So that motto is important, but only if we use it right. Only if we use it to teach the young and to give them the moral lessons and teachings that they need to move through life within society for the rest of their days. And it works. We have youth groups. We have a group called D. Malay. D. Malay teaches these young men, you know, the importance of these values, and we encourage them to come into the lodge. Unfortunately, when you've got a young man who's very enthusiastic, who's wanting to learn the morals and all the lessons that Freemasonry has to offer, when they come into a lodge, quite often they're faced by all these grumpy old men who are only there for the social aspects and not for the education or the improvement of society. So the young men tend to drift away now. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way things are at the moment.
Hopefully when we open up and we get more things out, that we will get more young men and young women coming in. You already explained to us about the liturgy inside of the lodge, so I'm very grateful for that. But I wanted to ask you, and many people do forget about that. Personally, I don't know because I'm part of that. So Freemasonry does have many hospitals, including University Hospital, including basically St. Jude Hospital in New York, including Shriners hospitals, and many different all around Africa, America, Europe. But many people are forgetting about that. Can you tell us a little bit about the charity work that Freemasons do?
Well, one of the things that we teach is charity, is benevolence. So it's one of our moral lessons that we teach the young. And it goes back to the days of, the old stonemasons. They saved money, they put money, almost like the Workers' Compensation Board. They put money aside in case somebody was injured. Back in the 1400s, late 1400s, early 1500s, we have a record of a woman in Edinburgh whose husband was a Freemason. He died on the job site. So what the lodge done was they actually gave her the position of a Master Mason, and they paid her her husband's wages. The only thing was that she had to employ a fellow craft to do the work for her, but she was still getting the wages that her husband was getting. So even from those early days, Freemasonry has been interested in healthcare to some aspect. Now, we do have our own branches here, our own organisations. For instance, the Shriners. The Shriners itself do a really good job with the hospitals. But there is so much money that has been put aside by brethren who have passed away that they really don't need to raise a lot of money anymore, because the money is there in trust and it's been there gathering interest, and it's there, it can sustain itself. But that's not to take away from anything that the Shriners do. Shrine itself is a very young organisation. It began in the late 1800s, and its purpose was actually a social club. And in that social aspect of it, they didn't do anything philanthropic at first. It was just a social club. It was just some place for the gentlemen to get together, to drink, to chat about current issues and things. But when Prohibition came about in the 1920s, the Shrine kept drinking.
Oh.
And it was done behind closed doors, but they kept up their kind of social aspects, their chat, their discussions on current affairs, and their drinking. So when they get found out, what they decided to do was to turn the whole organisation around to make it, more publicly beneficial to society. So they adopted helping out hospitals, and eventually they had enough money, enough funds to create their own hospitals. So this is the great thing with the Shrine. It's a young organisation. Its organisation started with the wrong kind of ideas, but through getting found out for what they were doing, they became an incredibly good organisation.
Yes, because now they're known through the world.
Absolutely.
For helping people and helping children, and many sick hospitals are built around the world because of it.
Yeah.
For the closing, what would you like to give our audience as advice about Freemasonry if they would like to join, or if they would like to know a little bit more about it, how they can learn?
Well, the best thing you can do is to try and find out Freemasons within your community. They are so knowledgeable, they will help you. Even if you're a woman wanting to learn Freemasonry, you can find out that information. It's all there. And if you can't find a person somebody to talk to in person, there's always the old internet. There's great contacts out there for male, for female lodges, for co-Masonic lodges, even just for knowledge. If you want to learn a little bit more but you don't want to join, find somebody like me who's willing to talk and willing to chat. There's a lot of us out there. But it's a great organisation. It has a lot of potential to make society better. It's a socially moral society. At its heart, it's a socialist organisation. A lot of people will hate me for that, but that is the teachings. The teachings is love and charity for all. It began as a working man's group. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Nothing more, nothing less. And there is no reason why, in this day and age, it cannot be shared by all genders, by all races, by young and old alike, at this time that Freemasonry moved up and joined normal modern society.
I just want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for taking me to this beautiful lodge. I've been here before with my father, and so this is like a home to me too. But I want to say you've been a wonderful host, and thank you for teaching us, and I hope everybody did enjoy our time here at the lodge with Master Doug Bewick, and I want to say one more time thank you, and you have a wonderful evening, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.